It's DaggerHeart time again. I wasn't expecting to post again today, but I just got sent a link to this article from Polygon. Apparently, CBR was not the only group of individuals who got a chance to look at DaggerHeart over at Gen Con. Some representatives from Polygon got a chance too. Not sure why they waited this long to post this response, but they posted a review, and it's not quite as stellar as the other review. It does say a lot of the same things, but it goes also a lot deeper into it because unlike CBR, Polygon does have some bits of respectability in the tabletop role-playing game world, having been around, for a while. And actually having articles and research and people who actually are associated with tabletop role-playing game. So now we know that Comic Book Resources have had a look at it, and Polygon has had a look at it. But you know who hasn't had a look at it? It's Gini D, which I still find kind of weird that you wouldn't invite her to the premiere of your game. Thought all you guys are like friends and stuff, and figured you'd want her, singing the praises. But our friend Miss D has not been invited to see it, which I find strange. Moving on, let's see what Polygon has to say about this game. I've skimmed the article already, and yeah, it's not quite as embracing as the previous one was, and still leaves the mystery of what the fate of DaggerHeart and Illuminated Worlds is. Notice that they're not even referring to Illuminated Worlds anymore. They are now pretty much just calling it Candle Obscura. So does this mean they've just given up on the Illuminated Worlds core game and Candle Obscura is going to be the game? It feels like they've given up on Illuminated Worlds. Candle Obscura kind of has already been a fire and forget. It doesn't really feel like they're talking a lot about it. As for DaggerHeart, well, they came out weak. They came out weak at Gen Con. If it was me, I would have done things different. But they're using the well, it's not ready yet excuse. I also think that they're waiting to see how the world reacts to 2024 D&D and how much money maybe Wizards is going to offer them to, not make DaggerHeart and stay loyal. I mean, personally, I don't think there's anything Wizards can offer them that they don't already have. Staying independent would allow them complete control of all their product line. But the one thing Hasbro does have is the toys and the games. That's the one thing, that toy money. That would be the thing that would get them, because everything else Amazon is offering them, and Amazon doesn't have access to that merchandising. So if I'm Critical Role, I'm thinking the only thing Hasbro can offer me to stay loyal to D&D is merchandising, because otherwise 100% control over our own product. But it doesn't really feel like they're pushing DaggerHeart the way I would think they would. You would have thought they would have come out strong at Gen Con, but they kind of came out weak. Apparently, very few people have gotten to see it. Very few articles are making about it. All we've seen is pictures of the character record sheet and these little cards, and now another review. So let's read this review, shall we? So this comes to us from Chase Carter of Polygon. This was written on today at 9 o'clock in the morning. Not sure why he waited to today if he saw it at Gen Con. So he goes on talking about Critical Role and what they've been doing with since D&D. And he refers to Dungeons and Dragons as the delivery pizzas. Ha ha ha. Chase Carter refers to Dungeons and Dragons as the role-playing equivalent of delivery pizza. Inoffensive, widely available, and reliable in a pinch. They were, we know that they're Critical Role. They're making some board games. They've got this cinematic-minded, magical noir tabletop role-playing game, Candle Obscura, which makes me feel like they're referring to it as Candle Obscura and not Illuminated Worlds. Have they given up on it? So in his latest venture, Spencer Stark, high fantasy DaggerHeart, walks back this exploration to offer an RPG that tastes familiar to D&D with your eyes closed. We grabbed an early look at Gen Con last week, spying the fresh ingredients and techniques Stark's employ to construct a very simple pitch. D&D players deserve better pizza. If you allow me to stretch the metaphor a bit further, great. Okay, I love this guy. He uses food. We know that I use food to reference things all the time. All right, so DaggerHeart is not a calzone. While Stark and his team of designers have changed some of the composite parts, using a pair of D12-sided dice instead of the conventional 20-sided dice to resolve contests. The result is still a fantasy melange setting where parties of adventurers undertake risks, fight foes, collect rewards, and level up. He told Polygon that 75% of DaggerHeart design should feel familiar to players, a comforting crust to support the palate-expanding flavors. I want to show people there's a whole world of games. So through both Candle Obscura and DaggerHeart, the goal from the beginning has been to say, you can play any game you want to, but I want you to know the options that you have. So again, Candle Obscura, not Illuminated Worlds. I need a clarification, guys. Are you just abandoning Illuminated Worlds? Cards and clarity. Laid out in a near-empty dining hall at the Indianapolis Stykes excitedly showed off DaggerHeart clever modular character sheet. It's 2 pieces of paper all told and contains all the information one needs to play the game. During character creation, the back sheet is pulled like an insert from a children's activity book, revealing role-playing prompts, reminders, and step-by-step instructions. Afterwards, you slide it underneath from left to right, where it describes the process of leveling up. That sounds way too complicated. So in order to play this game, we're going to have specialty-made character record sheets. We can't just use a piece of paper. That's a minus as far as I'm concerned. I should be able to play your game using just a piece of paper in an emergency. So hopefully there are ways to do that. True to form, this sheet uses cards. Ancestry and community cards provide the character's background. DaggerHeart will have 27 former and 9 of the later, so 27 ancestry and 9 backgrounds. He shows me the cards for a Wanderborn Clank, essentially a nomadic automaton, before explaining there's also a turtle and cat people. So I guess no humans in this world, huh? Or not a lot. Classes use card as wells and are a combination of 2 domains from DaggerHeart's grand ring of overlapping ideas. For example, rogues embody both Midnight and Grace, while bards combine Grace and Arcana in their performances. If classes describe a character's approach, their foundation card represents the application of that approach inside the fiction. A syndicate road may locate connections in any town they visit, empowering the player to inject their voice directly into the shared narrative. A Nightwalker, by contrast, gains access to stealth abilities that they can use in combat, eschewing role-playing strength for tactical maneuverability. Spell and ability cards are drawn from the class's respective domain decks. The character sheet houses room for 5 cards at a time, while the rest go into their vault. I like this ability. I already said I like this ability, and I don't care what anybody said. They stole this ability from me. It's the toggle ability I created for Fusion. These can be swapped around like radiating spells during rest period, though there's always the option to pull a card from the vault at a variable cost and stress. All of this information fits neatly into the rectangular gaps within the sheet's layout, printed neatly alongside the array of 6 core stats: agility, strength, precision, intuition, prescience, and knowledge. ASPIPK, ASPIPK, gear, connections, and other useful information. It's tidy, thoughtful, and most importantly, be visible at a glance. So here's the sheet right here. Agility, strength, precision, ASPIPK, experience, ability, race, hit point, I don't know. 1, brilliant. The cards, merchandising. Because now it also opens a whole new market for Etsy, and we know a lot of people make their living off of Darrington Press Critical Role Etsy projects. Something Wizards of the Coast is going slowly not allowing them to do, i.e. New Deck of Many Things. Oh, nobody's watching. So yes, brilliant merchandising. I have to get these cards, and if I lose them, I have to buy new cards, and obviously there's going to be more cards that come out in the future if the game is successful, and various people on Etsy can make their own specialty cards and sell them to you. And so yes, that is a great way to embrace the artist, but also I have to have cards, which means what happens if I use the cards? And it makes the character sheet even more complicated. And card / role-playing game haven't really had a good history, because inevitably you still have to refer to the rules. My goal with this system is for players who are coming in to make characters to not even have to crack open a rule book. We know that won't work. If they don't want to, they can sit down. They have all the cards in front of them. They want to flip through anything, they can just grab the cards that insert them, then put them on the character sheet and then play. How much am I going to have to pay for additional copies of this super special character record sheet. Great merchandising idea, but also horrible merchandising idea. Hope for something new. As he explains the mechanics underpinning DaggerHeart, two things become clear. First, Stark wears his influence on his sleeve. You think so? You think so? The guy is freaking obsessed with Powered by the Apocalypse. Everything he's made is basically a take on Powered by the Apocalypse, okay? Stark wears his influence on the sleeve, and this game is likewise bear the legacy of Forged in the Dark, which Stark worked on, and Powered by the Apocalypse, where Stark got his origins from, and even a smidge of 13th Age. All that extra tabletop DNA can't save it from clutching tight to the torch for the D&D audiences. Well, that is their intended audience, right? No ifs, ands, or buts. If DaggerHeart is going to work, it needs to go after that core D&D audience, the same way Pathfinder did, offer them a easily approachable, easily playable, easily markable, exciting alternative to 2024 D&D. Add to that the clout, there's a word we're going to be hearing a lot, the clout of the Critical Role cast. If they are clever, Campaign 4 will be partially, if not totally, DaggerHeart, or there will be a mini-series of DaggerHeart. But we need to see our boys and girls from Critical Role playing DaggerHeart, the characters and way that we love. So all the critters, the hundreds and hundreds of critters, the main merchandising goal moves away from D&D 5e and moves over to DaggerHeart. That is what we want. That is what we hope Critical Role wants. And really, that's what Wizards should want, for reasons we're not going to get into in this review. But yeah, really, Wizards needs to also cut that umbilical cord with Critical Role and the critters and get back to making games for gamers. Because, you know, the critters don't really play. I mean, some do. Okay. Stark admits that DaggerHeart is very much a power fantasy wherein you gain levels and unlock new ways to mete out violence. But that reduction ignores how the RPG's many interlocking systems encourage people to think about the narrative implications of the way their characters grows. Stress can be spent to reroll dice, but better serves to track how a scene influences characters beyond physical harm. Hit points aren't exact numbers, but a broader range of minor, major, and severe, freeing both players and GMs from the curse of crushing too much math during combat. The less math in combat, the better. But 5e is so easy. I can't imagine a system that has easier combat than 5e, says no one who has ever actually tried to play 5e combat. Segue. It should not have taken me and that kid and the DM and 3 other people 20 minutes to figure out how to add an extra d6 damage using D&D Beyond. So no, D&D 5e combat is complicated. Hope might be the best example of how Stark is attempting to rethink RPG resource economies. The precious asset can be spent to aid other die rolls in a one-on-one cost, or help yourself to small pump in price, where the hope die shows the bigger number, aka rolling with hope. Players gain 1 tick in their hope pool upon being reduced to 0 hit points. They can choose to be unconscious and stable, or rolling once to determine if they permanently lose 1 hope from their maximum pool, which leads the question is what happens when they're completely out of hope? Can I still play the character? Stark mentioned a fun little emergent design where a character who kept dying found themselves with just enough hope to aid their friends, but never to help themselves. Stark radiated excitement while wondering at the narrative possibilities. The other death moves fulfill a similar player empowerment purpose. I love this. Either you go out in a blaze of glory, performing 1 final act with a guaranteed critical success, or you risk it all on a die roll between immediate coming back from the dead or instant irrevocable death. Every action that led the player to that awful precipice should feel deliberate, weighty, and plugged directly into the shared glory of the story. Love that. I mean, that's not to say it hasn't existed before. I wanted to give people the experience that they expect in a fantasy game where it's like, yeah, I'm going to level up. Yeah, I'm going to get more cool stuff, Stark said, but also by embracing the level up design approach of a more Powered by the Apocalypse style game. It hopefully encourages people to think about the narrative implications of the way their character is growing. because I, Mr. Stark, absolutely am obsessed with Powered by the Apocalypse. But there's nothing wrong, you know? If nothing else, everything that's coming out recently using Powered by the Apocalypse is a great advertising push for Powered by the Apocalypse, who I have said in the past could have been the next GURPS. It was just one step away from being the next breakthrough paradigm-shifting game. DaggerHeart's chief selling point at present is the promise to reduce barriers to entry for new players that won't sacrifice the interesting complexity that keep veterans adventurers rolling, i.e. get the Critical Role fans away from D&D over to here. And while that's a noble goal, the hour I spent peering at cards, character sheets, and a map full of minis told me nothing about the kind of stories players will be empowered to create. Where are the DM tools used to craft mysteries or world-building tables for sewing together brutal resource scarce hex crawls? Interesting. No DM tools yet. One of D&D cardinal sins, something game designer architect Jeremy Crawford has previously admitted, is its oversized focus on players at the expense of the one person tasked with building and portraying a world full of other possibilities. Jeremy Crawford admitted that Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has absolutely no support for 5e dungeon masters. When did he say that? It's not clear whether DaggerHeart, it's an endeavor to build a bridge back to the D&D player base, will repeat the same mistake. Stark certainly views it as an opportunity to inform D&D players that there are many other games out there, and they have to have the opportunity to play a game in the genre they want without defaulting to Wizards' bread and butter. Okay, I think most people know there's other games. They just need an incentive to play them. Either they're too lazy to learn a new system. They're like, I already know 5e. Why do I have to play something else? You know, they're already exposed to the idea that D&D is king and everything else isn't. Your players are smarter than Wizards of the Coast thinks they are, Mr. Stark. So don't fall into that. They know other games exist. Wizards of the Coast just hasn't offered them any reason to look at other games. And none of the other games really have, you know, since Pathfinder and now more recently Shadow Dark, bobbed up out of the stream and said, hey, look at me, look at me. So that is what we're hoping, that DaggerHeart has the same impact as Pathfinder did. So what is that genre? Walking away from the Devo and contemplating the modular, sleek, wonderful card-based character creation and smart adoption of small press RPGs and brightest design threads, I left wondering if DaggerHeart will be a shiny new machine that produces the same campaign level medieval, if you squint, patriarch that D&D churns out at every table in the world. All these old ingredients, kitchen utensils, cooking skills, and we still might end up with a pizza. So what he's saying is this is going to be great, amazing, campaign shattering, paradigm rebuilding, or is it just going to be another, you know, D&D knockoff, ordered a pizza from, you know, a different company, and I eventually go back to D&D because it doesn't offer me anything that convinces me to not go back to D&D. Well, in the pointless gimmicks department, it definitely wins. And there's a lot positive to say about the pointless gimmicks from a merchandising point of view. From a player point of view, a DM point of view, I could say some pretty negative things about it. I love cards. Now, we know I love the cards as an addition. You know, here's a card that shows the sword you found. Bam, hold on to this card. It tells you everything you need to know about the sword, so I don't have to remember. And if you lose the card, oh, well, I guess your character lost the sword. It's not fair. You know how much those cards cost me? And of course, from a merchandise point of view, all these little gimmicks are things people are going to have to buy more of. I'm going to have to buy more cards, and then there'll be more special cards. I'll have to buy this special sheet or figure out a way to print it out. And then all the Etsy artists that live off of that Critical Role clout and make all that stuff, you know, they can start making stuff for DaggerHeart, and they can start making exclusive sheets and cards and dice and figures, which brings in new money to the small artists who are a huge chunk of the Critical Role fan base. And that's a good thing. And all that merchandise money is good for Critical Role and Darrington Press and Mercer and Company, because they can see that they can make merchandise money and they don't need Hasbro, because again, the only thing Hasbro can offer them that Amazon and they can't do themselves right now is the toys and, like, you know, Critical Role Monopoly and stuff like that. But if they can get other companies and they can get Amazon to start backing them, that's just one less reason for them to stay loyal to, and people are going to say, but the critters, well, the critters will follow them wherever. I mean, if they do campaign for even partially using this system, you will see a huge mass exodus because the critters really don't care what system they're playing. It's them. That's what the critters care about, the experience they get from watching the show. And then they'll go buy the stuff. And some of them will end up playing game. And a lot of them ended up playing 5e, at least for short periods. But then most of them left. The ones that remained became real 5e players, and weren't really as obnoxious as everybody made them out to be. But it does have lots of gimmicks for the sake of gimmicks on top of gimmicks. And from a player point of view, this is a lot of money I have to spend. If I lose these, I have to replace them. I need to pay for this extra character sheet when, I need to know that if in an emergency, I could just make my character on a piece of paper, 3x5 card, So gimmicks for gimmicks' sake. Now, copying and pasting powered by the apocalypse. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I am a huge fan of the potential of powered by the apocalypse, but I think it also failed. It had a very simple steps to reach the level it could have reached, but it tried to be too gimmicky. And I don't know if we want gimmicky. Well, players like me don't want gimmicky. We're old, we're simple, we're dumb. We don't want a lot of complicated things. But newer players who are the target audience of the Darrington Press crowd, they might like these gimmicks. They might like the cards and the thingies and think this is okay. I don't know. I mean, I love the cards for props, but as an actual integral part of the game, I don't know. And what happens if I lose the card? I have to buy the new cards. Yes. So that is where things stand on DaggerHeart. We'll have some more, hopefully by Thursday, maybe, or Friday. Maybe we'll have finally a press release from Darrington or what their plans are for Dagger to the Heart. Is there room for another fantasy role-playing game, 5e knockoff, in the already overcrowded swamp of fantasy games that we're looking at that are going to try and compete with Dungeons & Dragons 2024? And will any of them be able to rise above should the inevitable collapse of 2024 D&D happen the way so many people are predicting it? Even this guy refers to Dungeons & Dragons as bad delivery pizza. So, yeah, I'm going to use that one from now on. I don't know. I hope it succeeds. And not because I want to hurt Wizards of the Coast. Okay? I'm over that. I'm not one of those people who are angry at them. I was angry during the OGO thing. I got over it. I'm of this, my mindset is Wizards of the Coast can do whatever the F they want with D&D. If it's stupid, I'll make fun of it like I do with all the Crawford stuff. But at the end of the day, I understand I am not their target audience anymore. Problem is, they don't know who their target audience is. So I don't want this to succeed because I want to hurt Wizards of the Coast. I want this to succeed because I want Wizards of the Coast to see who the real audience for Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition is and get back to supporting them instead of trying to continuously placate these Veruca Salts, these people who are like, that's racist or whatever. I don't want to ever hear Mackenzie's and the Connie Chang's and the Kyle Brinks talk about 6th edition. I want people who actually love D&D to be the people making D&D, and I want Wizards of the Coast to go, we lost a ton of people to DaggerHeart because we don't know what our players want anymore. We need to refocus on both new mechanics and creating a game that is instantly approachable for new players, as well as embracing the 50-year tradition of the hobby instead of continuously trying to destroy the 50-year of the hobby, which means you have to stop hiring Kyle Brinks. You have to stop hiring Jeremy Crawford. You have to stop hiring Mackenzie's. You have to stop hiring these Veruca Salts. You have to get back to making people want to play D&D, and the people who want to play D&D are not the people you're making D&D for. So that is why I hope DaggerHeart succeeds, because I want Wizards of the Coast to be rinsed, washed, repeated, and come out with a brand new 6E that has nothing to do with the Critical Role fan base. Is that wrong of me? You know, I mean, Lord knows I've said some negative things about Darrington Press and Critical Role and Mercer, and I probably will continue to say negative things. And Lord knows I have said negative things about Critters, and I probably will continue to say negative things about Critters. And can these guys make a decent game without falling into the same trap 5e has fallen in, considering the trap 5e is in is pretty much their fault? I don't know. I mean, Mercer's a great storyteller, but he's not that great of a game master. And I know that's going to get me shot. So I don't know. Hey, it's our old friend, James, and Unscripted Unchained. Wow, two people who I actually respect. And who I guess maybe respect me. Interesting that they didn't invite Miss D to play the game. You would think of all the people they would have picked to be torchbearers for DaggerHeart, it would have been Gini, but they didn't invite her. Maybe they will in the future. I don't know. Or maybe she's not as popular as she once was because she took that stance against Wizards of the Coast. And now Gini Darling is the new spokesmodel for 5e because she will show her boobs. And Gini won't, at least not yet. I don't know. Tell me what you're thinking. We know what I think. I want it to succeed. I want it to succeed not for the reasons I think other people want it to succeed. I want it to succeed to drag all those 5e Critical Role players out of the swamp that Crawford has made 5e. So when 6e comes out, it can be D&D by D&D players for D&D players, as opposed to whatever it is 2024 D&D is going to be. Wonder how long before Condor will post a video about this, huh? There's something those two I recognize. All right, that's it for today. If you appreciate me talking about this nonsense, let me know. If you have any comments, let me know. If you want to talk about this further, let me know. Till then, I am the OGGM. Please take this moment to like, share, subscribe. Check out these two guys, Unscripted and Unchanged, and DM James. Both amazing. And yes, Gini Darling, boobs. And we'll talk to you soon. Get off my land.